In the sequence of me talking about achievement diaries last time, I posed myself the question, what happens when you want to release a big piece of content while adding incentives to it, if you already have a diary in the region to begin with? Well, it's pretty easy. Area rewards. So let's talk about those. Before we get into the main point, we need first to make a little bit of a detour and understand how Jagex releases updates. Nowadays, in Runescape 3, and even old school Runescape for that matter, Jagex releases updates in batches. They pick an area, design the activities, NPCs, quests, bosses and graphics, and then release it in the span of a few weeks/months. This tends to be a better approach, given that you can get a team together to do things, and you don't need to undertake the massive work of overhauling all of the graphics of everything in the game every few years. You can just update them as you add content to areas, modernizing the different aspects of the areas as you go. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because ultimately it makes it not just easier but also more likely to design extra incentive systems, given that you're already designing a huge portion of content instead of the occasional quest or NPC here and there. This doesn't mean Jagex doesn't do any smaller updates or that they give up on an area entirely after the batches are over, but it does have an impact of being easier to design content as a whole that feels far more connected. This again is especially true when designing reward systems, given that it's easier to design a system when you already know and have a lot of the content you're going to work with, and you know you won't have to be reworked constantly, and the limits are already well defined by the content is coming in the project. So now that we understand that Jagex is more prone to add these systems due to how they release content, let's talk about the systems themselves. For the most part, a reward system is a system that gives extra rewards and thus incentives to the players to engage with a piece of content. The systems offer rewards beyond the simple rewards you get from the activities themselves, and they never usually gatekeep rewards. Just like the achievement diaries, they simply offer additional rewards for those seeking the activities that have them. Therefore, any reward obtained through a simple activity isn't considered a reward system. For example, if I get a drop from a boss, that isn't a reward system, given that a drop is not a reward for engaging with the system, but rather it's a reward for engaging with an activity. On the other hand, killing bosses and gaining marks of war is a reward system, given that you gain rewards beyond the boss drops, and therefore have an extra incentive to keep killing the bosses even if you already have the drops you want from them. And as I mentioned killing bosses, you probably raised an eyebrow. You said you were going to talk about area rewards, but bossing is a general activity and marks of war aren't specific to an area as they can be found all over Gielinor. And you'd be correct. However, I also mentioned that these systems exist to incentivize players to engage further with a piece of content providing rewards. This means that over the years, with how much content has come into the game, Jagex expanded the achievement diary system and thus area rewards to be about more than just areas. We still have rewards that are area specific, but we also have those that span over entire activities. Some of these systems even offer you a combination of both, where they serve as an incentive to do an activity, but to do so in a specific area. For example, you can get enter marks if you do enter in Anachronia, but only in Anachronia. This serves as an incentive to do content in Anachronia and to do enter. With all of these in mind, let's break down the types of reward systems that exist in the game, and I would argue that there are mainly three types. Reputation system, a system where you gain reputation for engaging with a specific activity, upon which surpassing a threshold you unlock a reward. Examples of these include Manapho's reputation system or the farming guild reputation system. Currency system, a system where you gain currency for engaging with specific activities, upon which you are able to buy rewards. Examples of these include Marks of War or the Crux Ecal points. Activity system, a system where you run a checklist of activities you need to engage with, upon which completion you unlock various rewards. Examples of these include the collection logs or the archaeology ranks. A note about the achievement tab in Runescape 3. This could be seen as an even bigger overarching reward system that includes pretty much achievements for all other reward systems. However, I refrain from including it because I feel it's more of a organizational system than a reward one, given that a lot of the rewards that it comes from it come more from the specific achievements themselves and not from the achievement system as a whole. So, now that we understand what reward systems are, what rewards do they actually give? Reward systems actually give a plethora of varied and diverse rewards, which makes them hard to pinpoint, and as such, I decided to boil them down into 3 categories. However, you can easily categorize them differently than I did, exactly due to, well, how varied they actually tend to be. So, what are the 3 types of rewards? Cosmetic rewards, rewards that are given so you can show off your accomplishments. Examples of these include weapons or armor overrides or titles. Active gameplay rewards, rewards that are given to you that serve a gameplay purpose relating to the activities you did to earn them. Examples of these include VIP area in Menefos or the ability to plant multiple seeds in the same patch at a time. Passive gameplay rewards, rewards that are given to you that serve a passive gameplay purpose to the overarching activities you perform around Gielinor. Examples of these include the Cape Rack and Elm Stand in Anachronia, which apply the passive buffs as long as they are in the stand. Obviously, and as mentioned before, the best part about these systems is that Jagex can design them to be more specific to the pieces of content they release, meaning that they don't need to suffer constant reworks or get outdated as often. You also have more of the content updated included in it, since you already know most of what the content is gonna contain. It allows for a more diverse reward and diverse types of rewards you can actually get. While some rewards can just be cosmetic to show off, others can impact the gameplay of an activity, an area, or just serve as a nice quality of life update that will serve you for the rest of your adventuring. It also feels more connected to the content itself as opposed to just being a system on top. Let's take Anachronia for instance. For you to unlock the Slayer Elm Stand, you need to level up the Slayer Lodge to 3 stars. So you have a system offering passive rewards. However, to level it up to 3 stars, you need a specific untradeable drop from the monsters in the island. So maybe, next time you have a Slayer task, you'll be more inclined to do it, since, getting this task then can also passively get you the drop, which can give you that Elm Stand, which can give you the passive buff from the Slayer Elm. This all works connected, making it feel all part of the same reward system, and as a result, less obtrusive. At this point, it should be obvious that there's nothing that doesn't have downsides. The biggest one, I would say, is confusion. Having so many reward systems all working differently can be great to have a variety in the game and balance the work/reward. However, you always run the risk of the amount of systems being so many, and since they work so differently, they just end up actually confusing the players. Why does Anachronia have a minigame for a system while Menefos just has a standard reputation system? Why do they require different things, and why do they work differently? This difference just makes the game feel less cohesive and consistent as a whole, which increases players' frustration. Given this diversity, you also run the risk of certain players liking a system, but hating the other, not understanding why you chose 2 different systems instead of just sticking to the one. Rewards can also feel wildly different in their execution and usefulness, leading the players to just having to engage with systems they might not like, while the systems that they do like feel useless to engage with. Overall, I do think that they are a positive addition to the game. It allows Jagex to trial a lot of systems, see how players react to them, and make updates feel overall more worth it. An interesting thing I did not touch on this video is that ultimately the philosophy remains the same, which is to reward players that are doing content with more content. The type of philosophies that we see very strongly with quests, for example. Even old school RuneScape follows some of these reward systems, although to a lesser extent, since they mostly just give rewards to activities instead of having entire systems. I can't say that this approach is necessarily superior, but it is interesting to see how both games approach the incentives they want to give players. Lastly, the achievements in RuneScape 3 do a decent job of tying all systems together. While there can still, be confusion due to the different systems, having achievements just makes everything feel, like a little different adventure you go on, which makes everything feel more connected than in reality it actually is. This system obviously also incentivizes players to go do content on its own, which is great. Overall though, I don't necessarily think reward systems are inherently needed in the game, but I do think they are an overall positive and welcome addition to the game, and it was pretty interesting seeing what types of systems Jagex has come up with over the years. Obviously this wasn't an exhaustive look into it, as I avoid doing that in my videos, but I still think general notion is pretty interesting nonetheless.